Welcome to the Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm Joy LiBethe, one of your Dharma leaders. And tonight is the first in our summer Sutta series. And what that means is that the Dharma leaders each have the opportunity to teach a sutta, and Sanskrit sutra, of their choice. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes to give some background on suttas. The Pali Canon is a vast body of scriptural narrative which forms the doctrinal foundation for Theravada Buddhism, of which insight meditation follows. And the Pali Canon is often referred to as the Tripitaka, which means the three baskets. And it includes Vinayapedika, which are the rules of conduct for nuns and monks in the monastery and background on how they can maintain communal harmony. The second basket is the Sutta Pitaka, and the third is the Abidamapedica. Now, the Abidamapedica has 7 books, and it offers an extraordinary detailed analysis of the investigation of mind and matter. It's pretty heavy. So what we choose from is the Sutta Pitaka, the second division, and that consists of what's called 5 Nikayas, which means collections or volumes. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of suttas. Suttas can also be called a discourse or a sermon that were delivered by the Buddha and his close disciples. So, nothing was written down at the time of the Buddha, and shortly after his death, there was the first Buddhist council, which defined the Vijnana, the first of the baskets, and the Sutta Pitaka was orally rehearsed. So tonight I'm going to talk about a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, often referred to as the numerical discourses. And I'm going to be doing AN 761. So if I haven't lost you yet, or that's about all you can take of this Pali Canon background, then this sutta is for you. It's also known as the dozing sutta or the nodding off sutta. So this is the first part of the sutta that I'm going to talk about, and it's very practical. And later on, I'll get to a more profound section of that sutta. So I'm not going to read the entire sutta because it would be too much. There's no time to cover it all. The language isn't the easiest to understand if you aren't actually studying it. So I'll read some sections, I'll skip some writings that aren't important to the point, and I'll explain other sections. So here we go. Thus have I heard on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Bhagas on the Crocodile Hill in the deer park Abhisakala Grove. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Mahamoggallana was sitting and dozing. The Blessed One sat down on the seat that was prepared for him and said, "Are you dozing, Moggallana? Are you dozing, Moggallana?" "Yes, Bhante." So at this point, he fests up to the Buddha. So I thought for any of you who have ever had difficulty in keeping awake during meditation or Dharma talk, the Buddha provides 7 ways in this sutta for you to be able to keep alert. The first one, he goes on to say, "Therefore, Moggallana, you should not attend to or cultivate the object that you were attending to when you became drowsy. By such means, it's possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned." So in other words, what were you focusing on when you became drowsy or sleepy? Maybe you were thinking about that you were tired, that the speaker was boring, or how early you got up that morning, or what you were going to do in a certain situation. Was there a story going on in your mind? Did you have a certain feeling? So he said that we need different methods. So whatever that was that you were focusing on, don't focus on that. And sometimes breathing can be very relaxing, and that might be difficult for you at times. So you might need something more energetic. Second point, but if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should ponder, examine, and mentally inspect the Dhamma as you have heard it and learned it. By such means, it is possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. So think of something you have learned in studying the Dharma, maybe the Four Noble Truths or anything that you've learned. And pondering is okay if you're really drowsy, because that'll cultivate wisdom and understanding in your mind. So so that you can do that. That's Buddha saying, recommends that if you can't stay awake. But what if that doesn't work? And the Buddha says you should recite in detail the Dhamma as you have heard it and learned it. By such means, it is possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. Now, what he's saying here is to repeat yourself something that you may have memorized. Perhaps a phrase as easy as, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha, or perhaps meta phrases that you have memorized. And you can repeat those to try to keep from being so drowsy. But what if that doesn't work? So he says, if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should pull both ears and rub your limbs with your hands. By such means, it's possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. So that's pretty self-explanatory, except if you're sitting next to somebody, you don't want to start rubbing your arms and legs. So, but you can just gently in your lap, rub your hands together. But if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should get up from your seat, rub your eyes with water, survey all the quarters. If you're outside, look up the stars, and by such means, it's possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. So, you can always get up, go to the restroom if you can, splash your face, try to wake you up, or at least just get up and stand. When you're not in close quarters, you can always stand behind your seat and hold on, or go to the back of the room. But if you can't, this is number 6, but if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should attend to the perception of light. You should undertake the perception of day thus, as by day, so at night, and at night, so by day. Thus, with a mind that is open and uncovered, you should develop a mind imbued with luminosity. So what he's saying here is to concentrate on the perception of day, even if it's night. Think of the sun or a bright room. One translation says, so with an open and undeveloped heart, develop a mind that's full of radiance. So you're thinking of light, and that may help to wake you up. But if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should undertake the exercise of walking back and forth, perceiving what is behind you and what is in front of you, with sense faculties drawn in and your mind collected. By such means, it's possible that your drowsiness will be abandoned. So here, of course, the Buddha is talking about walking meditations. And, that's why we do that after lunch at retreats, because everybody's getting sleepy then. Walking meditation is great if you're really tired. And then the Buddha says, but if you cannot abandon your drowsiness in such a way, you should lie down on the right side in the lion's posture, with one foot overlapping the other, mindful and clearly comprehending, after noting in your mind the idea of rising. When you awaken, you should get up quickly, thinking, I will not be intent on the pleasure of rest, the pleasure of sloth, the pleasure of sleep. It is in this way, Moggallanda, that you should train yourself. So what he's saying here is, if you try all of these other things and you still can't stay awake, maybe you really need sleep. Maybe you really need a nap. So he's recommending that you lie down, but when you do, think about getting up and not be and being alert and awake. So I'm just going to run over really quickly what those 7 ways were to ward off the drowsiness as review. 1, don't think on what you were focusing on or thinking or what you were feeling when you became drowsy. 2, recall a teaching you have learned and ponder it. Maybe something from last week, like last week Clyde talked about mudita, appreciative joy. That's a really energizing thing. So that's something, if you're feeling really drowsy, that you could focus on. What have you memorized? Is there anything within the sutras or any phrases that you've memorized? You can repeat those over and over to ward off the drowsiness. And then, of course, number 4 is pinching your ears and rubbing your limbs. Number 5 is getting up and throwing water in your eyes or looking all around and looking up. Number 6 is focusing on the perception of light, concentrating as though bright lights surround you and that you're really, just looking up at the sun or under surveillance. When I think about this, I think about when Gary and I first started to date. I was living in Baltimore and he was living in Indianapolis. and he was coming to Baltimore. But the first time I went to Indianapolis to see him, he met me at the plane and he took me over to the helicopter pad. One of his patients happened to be the wife of the police chief in Indianapolis. And we got on the helicopter, and what we were doing was going out on patrol that night. So first they took us to a park and they let me practice with that big spotlight, getting skilled at moving that around. And then whenever there was like a car chase, they would call the helicopter in and I could put that spotlight down on the car. Or if there was a drug deal going on and then the helicopter would fly in, I put that spotlight down on the drug dealers, and boy, they would scare. I mean, that light made a difference. So I think of that, the brightness of that light, and how that'll really wake you up, because everyone really woke up when I was doing that. So, and then the seventh one is the walking meditation. And if that still doesn't work, then to lie down, take a nap, and think about getting up and not wanting to be sleepy or drowsy. So you all know that our Sangha has a YouTube where you can watch the Dharma talks. And so I want to show you a video that was taken before the pandemic. And I think I was the person given the Dharma talk that evening. And this might help you to understand why I chose this sutta. Okay. So if you were getting dozy from my Dharma talk up until then, hopefully that woke you up a little bit. So AN 761 Sutta doesn't end with working with drowsiness. I guess the Buddha thought he'd take this opportunity to teach them other things. Therefore, Moggallana, you should train yourself thus. We will not approach families with a head swollen with pride. This way, through lack of gain, one feels humiliated. When feeling humiliated, one becomes restless. When one is restless, one loses one's restraint. The mind of one without restraint is far from concentration. What he's talking about here is when the monks go on alms, but they're not receiving food. People aren't paying attention to them. And then they come back feeling really badly about that. And I think this is applicable to all of us who are looking for something from someone else and we don't get it. So he's saying when that happens, don't be proud, resentful, humiliated when not getting what you think you deserve. The sutta also points out that we shouldn't get into arguments because it makes us restless and unrestrained. That makes sense. He talks about the need for solitude, quiet, and retreat to help us so that we don't get so restless and unrestrained and argumentative. And at the end of the sutta, Moggallana asks the Buddha, how do you know when you're awakened? Or how do you stop this craving so that you're liberated? How do you know that? So, we all know the Four Noble Truths teach us that our dissatisfaction in life, our suffering comes from craving. So Moggallana here is asking the big question, how do you get released from craving? How can you see when someone is awakened? And the Buddha responds, when a bhikkhu has heard nothing is worth clinging to, he directly knows all things. Having directly known all things, he fully understands all things. Having fully understood all things, whatever feeling he's feeling, whether pleasant, painful, neither pleasant nor painful, he dwells contemplating impermanence. In those feelings, contemplating fading away in those feelings, contemplating cessation in those feelings, contemplating relinquishment in those feelings. As he dwells contemplating impermanence, fading away, cessation, relinquishment, he does not cling to anything in the world. He tells Moggallana that not clinging, one attains nibbana, that is freedom, awakening. So here he's addressing the most important teaching, and that is impermanence. And if we truly know impermanence, we can let go, and therein lies our freedom. Constantly relinquishing all things because they are insubstantial, not worthy, impermanent, and insufficient. Alan Watts says, whether we like it or not, change comes, and the greater the resistance, the greater the pain. Buddhism perceives the beauty of change, for life is like music in this. If any note or phrase is held for longer than its appointed time, the melody is lost. Thus, Buddhism may be summed up in two phrases, let go and walk on. Drop the craving for self, for permanence, for particular circumstances, and go straight ahead with the movement of life. So when we think about the importance of letting go, what things do we need to let go of? I think you might find you're aware of many of them in your life, but maybe there's some you haven't even thought about. So the caveat here is that letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy or you don't value or don't appreciate. It means that you don't cling. I don't know about you, but many of the extraordinary experiences I've had in my life, I don't cling to their being repeated. They're once in a lifetime. So non-clinging doesn't mean that you don't love or care, but you don't cling or crave. Every moment is a once in a lifetime. So here's a way of looking at our clinging. When we're clinging, we can think of each thing to which we cling as being something heavy that we're carrying around, maybe in a sack or in a huge purse. If you're a woman, you have this purse and you're always trying to root around in there, trying to find something. And it always seems to be lost or at the bottom. Maybe you're carrying it around on a backpack. Maybe some of you are clinging to so many things, you've even got a whole storage shed you're pulling around. I've been there. Now think what you might be clinging or holding on to. It can be anything from feelings like resentment, anger, bad memories, fears, guilt, obsession with the future. It's hard to let go. Change isn't easy. We fight to hold on and we fight to let go. Maybe it's a family member, your job, your commitments. Now, this doesn't mean you leave your family or quit your job or relinquish your commitments, but it does mean you let go of the way you relate to them. Is there anything you're complaining about all the time? Then it's the complaining you need to let go of. If you've been hurt, if you don't let it go, you're getting hurt over and over, not just once. When you're dwelling on keeping or controlling or manipulating, see what that grasping looks like. Does it bring you freedom or suffering? How about outcomes? We're so attached to outcomes at the expense of not being present right now. Now, life is uncertain, but if we can just believe in now being enough, we can let go a little. Can you be with things just as they are? Just this. Can you practice letting things be? It doesn't mean let go all of the time, but any time in any situation, you just got let go a little and let things be. When you're dissatisfied, can you ask, what do I need to let go of? You know, wouldn't it be great if we could define ourselves in fluid terms? Are you clinging to your identity? That's a big one. I'm the smart one, the talented one, the competent one, the always ready one, or maybe I'm the dumb one, or the competent one, or the one that failed, or the one that doesn't accomplish anything. Thich Nhat Hanh says, Buddhism teaches that joy and happiness arise from letting go. Please sit down and take inventory of your life. There are things you've been hanging on to that really are not useful and deprive you of the freedom. Find the courage to let them go. So Ajahn Brahm, I know a number of you in the Sangha really enjoy that Australian monk. He says there's 4 ways to let go. First one is get rid of things. That lessens the weight you're carrying around. Fewer possessions, that's better. Bad attitudes, unhealthy relationships, get rid of things. The second one is to be content, happy to be here. Any place you don't want to be is prison. Home, relationships, job, sick body. To escape, you don't need to change anything. Just change your attitude. Wanting to be here is the second way of letting go, and it's a powerful way. So even when you're dozing, if you want to be here, you'll feel at peace. We all know how to do things, but do we know how to put things down and let go and rest? You don't need to change anything, just change attitude. And if you want to be here, you're free and content. If you're stuck in a traffic jam, no stress if you want to be there. Third one that Ajahn Brahm says is giving, expecting nothing in return. It feels so good. And whether that's giving to charity or time with someone who's lonely, a phone call to check up on someone, anonymous donations, the more expectations you have, the less you enjoy. We have a retreat coming up, and I hope a number of you will be attending. And I remember the first time I was getting ready to go to a retreat, I was told, don't have any expectations of the retreat. So I went without any expectations. And all the many, many retreats I've gone to over the year, I never enter a retreat with any expectations. And I found every one of them to be wonderful. Not always easy, but really quite wonderful. And the fourth one is the Teflon mind. He says, let go of complaining, judging, comparisons, thinking too much. There's a Pali word, papancha, which is all this mental proliferation so that you've even lost the core of what it was you were beginning to think about or you experienced. Let that all go. I thought this was really interesting. Ajahn Brahm said, descriptions corrupt the experience. So what he's saying is that we get so much into thinking about things, and he compared it to that thinking about things is like that experience is the menu, is the knowledge, but the food is the truth. So we can read the menu, we can see what's here, we can think about all we want, but if we don't taste it, we're not going to really be tasting the truth. So you know, all that the Buddha taught was about dukkha, suffering, dissatisfaction, and the elimination of dukkha. There's a phrase in the Sutta AN 761 that says, Sabe Dhamma Namla Abidamapedica. And it says, and I've seen it translated in 2 different ways, though they make the same point in slightly different ways, saying, All things are not sufficient or worth enough to settle on, rest on, making a home on, because all things are insubstantial. Nothing is worth clinging to. And it also means nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. Now, the Buddha himself declared that this is the summation of all his teachings. He said that to have heard the phrase Sabidamanalam Abhimibhisaya is to have heard everything. To have put it into practice is to have practiced everything. And to have reaped its fruits is to have reaped every fruit. Grasping and clinging is the cause of suffering. When there's grasping and clinging, there's dukkha. When there's no grasping and clinging, there is no dukkha. Just that is enough. There's nothing else to do. Sabe Dhamma Nalam Abhidamapedica. May you hold this in your heart. Thank you. Okay. Well, you know, it's time now where if you have a question or a comment, you can raise your hand, or you can also chat into the chat box. Comes up. I know you're not all dozing after that. Okay. All right, well, while you're thinking about that, I'll go ahead and give the announcements. So everything I'm saying you can find on our website, imccharlotte.org. Get the details there. First of all, I want to thank you all for your dana. You know, we're not meeting in person, and so sometimes it takes a little more effort to get to the website and to make a donation there, but we really appreciate that. Our Tuesday noon sits are going well. They're at noon for about 45 minutes every Tuesday. We invite you to come and join us. There'll be a new book discussion group beginning in September, and the book is called Unbinding by Kathleen Dowling Singh, and a number of you may have read her books on aging and dying. So we're looking forward to that, and if you're interested in that, you can contact me, and there's more information on the website. We're having a guest leader, Tueri Salah, on July 21st, and that one will begin at 7 o'clock, so make sure that you tune in early that day. Registration for the IMC Summer Retreat, August 19th to 22nd, is open and ongoing. So we haven't had one in a while. So please, if you can make it, it'll be wonderful for you. And the first Wednesday of each month, like today, we have a practice discussion from 6:45 to 7:15. And the last Wednesday of each month, we have instructions, an introduction session at 7 p.m. And you can find those links on the website. And I also want to say that when we begin that meeting in August 4th, that'll be our first one to meet in person again at Park Road Baptist Church. And we are asking people to be vaccinated, or if not, to please wear a mask. And I also want to take a minute to thank all of the volunteers. You know, there's so much work that goes on behind the scene to bring this to you and all our events to you. So I really want to thank all of those volunteers. So Denise has just let us know that our Summer Sutra series, which I began tonight, will go through August 11th. And people said thank you, and they were glad that Mr. Bean lent a hand, and hopefully that was joyful for all of you. So does anyone else have anything they want to chat or they want to raise their hand? Okay. All right. Then let's continue on with our metta. So if you want to get in a comfortable position, relaxed, close your eyes. And if you have your own metta, please do that. If not, you can silently repeat after me. try at this time it helps to feel, maybe think about someone that you love or something really beautiful that's happened to you, to bring your heart into that place of contentment and joy. So someone that brings a feeling of goodness and gladness in your life, or an event, or perhaps a pet. And beginning with ourselves, may I be peaceful. May I be happy. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May my heart be filled with loving kindness. May I be free. And now think of someone to whom you'd like to send metta, a person, a group. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May your heart be filled with loving kindness. May you be free. And now, for all beings everywhere, seen and unseen, may all beings be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May all beings' hearts be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be free. May any merit we accrued from the sharing of the Dharma here tonight be for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free.